Well, the history of Baptists in America begins before the Revolutionary War, and Baptists were rebels in every sense of the word. The established church in America before the Revolution was the Church of England, the Anglican Church, and in a lot of ways it was almost illegal to be a Baptist. So Baptists, an example was historian Lewis Peyton Little writes about how an Anglican minister walked onto a stage where a Baptist preacher was sermonizing, stuck his riding crop into the man's mouth, helped drag the man off to be beaten bloody by the sheriff. A mob interrupted David Burrow's service, forced his head underwater and mud until he nearly drowned. Lots of other examples of this. A Baptist was dragged from his house. A meeting was broken up by a mob. A preacher was pulled down and hauled about by his hair or his hand. A mob tried to suffocate a preacher with smoke, shot him with a shotgun, jerked another preacher off a stage and beat his head against the ground. It was difficult to be a Baptist in those days, and the way that Baptists responded to this treatment was to be a powerful force in favor of the separation of church and state. That was a core demand of the American Revolution, and Baptists were at the forefront of saying, no, the relationship between a human being and his or her God is sacrosanct and is private, and the state has no business saying anything about it. Not only that, but it would be improper for Baptists to be part of the government as Baptists. They were part of the government as members of a democracy, as American citizens, but not as members of churches. That was a totally different part of their lives. And I think it's a principle that we would do really well to remember these days, that our private faith and the way that we live out that faith is incredibly important and it shouldn't fall under the aegis of the government. It shouldn't be controlled by the government, and no government should be telling us how we believe, and we shouldn't be using our faith as a way to dominate the government and end up with more power than some other faith tradition. Those are two totally separate issues.